One evening, after a watercolor session, they slipped out of the studio together. The air was heavy with humidity, the smell of grilled pork skewers drifting from a nearby stall. Ananda bought 2 cups of iced tea, handing one to Phum. "You always look like you need this after painting," he said with a smile. Phum laughed softly. "Maybe I do. Concentrating so hard makes me forget I'm human." "You're very human," Ananda replied, his tone teasing but gentle. "That's what I like about you. You don't pretend." The words lingered in Phum's chest. He had spent years feeling like he had to explain himself, defend himself, justify why his love didn't look like everyone else's. With Ananda, he didn't feel that weight. Their conversations deepened. They talked about art, yes, but also about life, family, dreams, fears. Ananda told Phum about his childhood in Chiang Mai, about how he had moved to Bangkok to pursue illustration. "It's not easy," he admitted one night as they sat in the cafe. "Freelance work means uncertainty. But I love it. I love creating something that makes people feel." Phum listened fascinated. He shared his own stories, his struggles with dating, his frustration at being misunderstood. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm asking for too much," he confessed. "I want romance, but not sex. And people don't see that as real." Ananda's gaze was steady. "It is real," he said firmly. "Love doesn't have to look the same for everyone. What you want is valid." The words settled in Phum's chest like a bomb. He had heard reassurances before, but never with such conviction. Their bond grew through small rituals. Ananda would bring Phum snacks from the market, bags of roasted chestnuts, cups of iced coffee. Phum, in turn, would surprise Ananda with sketchbooks or pens, small gifts that showed he was paying attention. They began to share more of their lives, family stories, childhood memories, dreams for the future. One Sunday afternoon, as they sat on the grass in Benjikiti Park, Ananda pulled out his sketchbook. He began to draw the skyline, the gleaming towers of Sukhumvit rising above the trees. Phum watched, fascinated by the way his hand moved, steady and sure. "You make it look easy," he said. Ananda smiled. "It's not easy. It's practice. And patience." Phum hesitated, then asked softly, "Do you ever feel like people don't have patience for us? For the way we love?" Ananda's pencil paused. He looked up, his expression thoughtful. "All the time," he admitted. "They want quick answers, quick intimacy. And when we don't give it, they leave. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it means the ones who stay are the ones who matter." The words settled in Phum's chest, heavy and comforting all at once. Their conversations often drifted into vulnerability. One evening, as they walked through Sukhumvit's night market, weaving between stalls of clothes and trinkets, Ananda spoke quietly. "I used to think I was broken," he said. "That something was wrong with me, because I didn't want what everyone else seemed to want. But then I realized I'm not broken. I just love differently." Phum's throat tightened. "I felt the same," he admitted. "Like I was asking for too much. Like I was incomplete." Ananda stopped, turning to face him. The glow of neon lights reflected in his eyes. "You're not incomplete," he said firmly. "You're whole. And what you want is valid." Phum swallowed hard, his heart racing. For the first time, he believed it. Their bond deepened through small acts of care. Ananda would bring Phum snacks from the market, bags of roasted chestnuts, cups of iced coffee. Phum, in turn, would surprise Ananda with sketchbooks or pens, small gifts that showed he was paying attention. They began to share more of their lives, family stories, childhood memories, dreams for the future. One night, after a long day, they sat together on the rooftop of Ananda's studio. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling like stars. Ananda leaned back, sighing. "You know," he said, "I don't want to rush this. But I feel safe with you. Like I don't have to pretend." Phum's chest ached with emotion. "I feel the same," he whispered. The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. The rain came suddenly one evening, heavy and unrelenting, drumming against the streets of Sukhumvit. Phum had just stepped out of the studio when the downpour began, sheets of water hammering the pavement. He ducked under the awning of a closed shop, shaking droplets from his hair. only to find Ananda already there, clutching a sketchbook to his chest. "You again," Ananda said with a grin, his hair plastered to his forehead. Phum laughed, the sound surprising him. "Seems like we're destined to share umbrellas we don't have." They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the rain flood the street. Tuk-tuk splashed past, sending water spraying. The air smelled of wet concrete and fried garlic from a nearby stall. Ananda shifted closer, their arms brushing. "I like storms," he said softly. "They make the city pause. Even Sukhumvit slows down." Phum glanced at him, noticing the way his eyes reflected the neon lights. "I used to hate them," he admitted. "They made me feel trapped. But now maybe they're not so bad." The rain eased after a while, and Ananda offered to walk him back. Their steps matched, their conversation easy. By the time they reached the condo, Phum realized he hadn't thought of rejection once during the walk. That realization startled him, but it also felt like relief. Days turned into weeks, and their bond grew deeper. Ananda invited Phum to his studio more often, a small space filled with canvases and jars of brushes. The walls were lined with sketches, portraits of people in cafes, street scenes from Sukhumvit, abstract swirls of color. Phum wandered through the room, fascinated. "You see the world differently," he said. Ananda smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I just pay attention." They spent hours there, talking, sketching, sharing stories. Phum felt a quiet joy in those moments, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. He found himself opening up in ways he hadn't before. He told Ananda about his struggles with dating, the endless cycle of hope and rejection. "It always ends the same," he admitted one evening. "They think I'm saving myself, or that I'll change my mind. And when I explain, they leave." Ananda listened quietly, his expression soft. "I know," he said finally. "It's the same for me. People think love has to look one way. But it doesn't. It can be different. It can be ours." The words lingered in Phum's mind long after. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't alone in his longing. Their friendship deepened quickly. They began meeting outside of art sessions, weekend walks through Benjikiti Park, late-night chats online, shared meals in Sukhumvit's endless food stalls. Ananda would send photos of his sketches, and Phum would reply with encouragement. Phum, in turn, shared snippets of his day, small victories at work, frustrations, moments of joy. Trust was building slowly but surely. One evening, they wandered through Terminal 21, the mall designed like an airport, each floor themed after a different city. They laughed at the quirky decorations, tried on sunglasses they didn't intend to buy, shared a plate of pad thai in the food court. As they sat together, Ananda turned serious. "You know," he said, "I've had relationships before. But they always ended because of expectations I couldn't meet. People wanted more than I could give. And I felt broken." Phum's chest tightened. "You're not broken," he said quietly. "You just love differently." Ananda smiled faintly. "Maybe. But it's hard to believe that sometimes." Phum reached across the table, his fingers brushing Ananda's hand. "I believe it. And I understand." The moment was small, but it carried weight. For both of them, it was a step toward something deeper. Later that week, they sat together on the rooftop of Ananda's studio. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling like stars. The air was cooler after the rain, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby temple. Ananda leaned back, sighing. "You know," he said, "I don't want to rush this. But I feel safe with you. Like I don't have to pretend." Phum's chest ached with emotion. "I feel the same," he whispered. The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Phum lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his condo. He thought about the way Ananda's laughter lingered, the way his words carried conviction, the way his presence made the city feel less overwhelming. For years, Phum had believed love wasn't meant for him, that he was asking for too much. But now, for the first time, he felt hope, not fragile, not fleeting but steady. Sukhumvit's nights were always alive. The hum of traffic, the glow of neon signs, the chatter of vendors, it was a district that never truly slept. For Phum, The noise had once been a reminder of his loneliness, a backdrop to evenings spent scrolling through dating apps that only left him more frustrated. But now, the city felt different. It was no longer just noise. It was the soundtrack to his evenings with Ananda. Their routines had become second nature. Tuesday art sessions, weekend walks, late-night chats. But beneath the comfort of these rituals lay something deeper, something unspoken. Phum felt it in the way Ananda's eyes lingered when they talked, in the warmth of his laughter, in the quiet moments when silence felt like connection rather than emptiness. Yet with that warmth came fear. Phum had been rejected so many times before, told he wasn't enough, that his love was incomplete. He worried that even Ananda, who seemed to understand, might one day change his mind. One evening, as they sat in a small cafe tucked into a Sukhumvit alley, Ananda spoke quietly. "I need to tell you something," he said, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. "In my last relationship, I thought I had found someone who understood me. At first, they said it was fine, that they didn't mind. But after a few months, they started to push. They said love without sex wasn't real. And when I refused, they left." Phum's chest tightened. "That's happened to me too," he admitted. "They say they understand, but they don't. And then I'm left wondering if I'm asking for too much." Ananda shook his head firmly. "You're not asking for too much. You're asking for what you need. And that's valid." The conviction in his voice made Phum's throat ache. He wanted to believe it, but doubt lingered. What if one day you feel the same? What if you decide it's not enough? Ananda reached across the table, his hand brushing Phum's. "Then I wouldn't be the person you think I am. I know myself. I know what I want. And it's not sex, it's connection. It's this." Phum swallowed hard, his heart racing. For the first time, he felt the possibility of trust, not fragile, not fleeting, but real. Their conversations grew more vulnerable after that. They spoke about childhood fears, about the loneliness of being misunderstood, about the quiet ache of wanting something the world didn't always recognize as valid. Ananda shared stories of growing up in Chiang Mai, of feeling different even as a teenager, of hiding parts of himself to fit in. Phum shared his own stories, awkward dates, dismissive comments, the exhaustion of explaining himself over and over. In those conversations, they found mirrors of each other. One night, after an art session, they walked through Sukhumvit's night market. The air was thick with the smell of grilled meat and fried dough, the stalls crowded with people. Ananda stopped at a vendor selling bracelets, picking one up. "This reminds me of when I was younger," he said. "I used to make these with string. It was the only time I felt like I was creating something that mattered." Phum smiled. "You're still creating things that matter." Ananda looked at him, eyes soft. "So are you, just by being yourself." The words hit Phum like a wave. He had never thought of himself that way, that simply existing, simply being honest about who he was could matter. Weeks passed, and Sukhumvit's chaos became the backdrop to something steadier, their growing intimacy. Phum noticed the way Ananda's laughter lingered, the way his words carried conviction, the way his presence made the city feel less overwhelming. One evening, as rain poured outside, they sat on the floor of Ananda's studio, sharing a blanket. The sound of raindrops against the windows was steady, soothing. Ananda leaned his head against Phum's shoulder. "This," he whispered, "is enough." Phum closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the moment wash over him. "It is," he agreed. Their relationship grew slowly, deliberately. They didn't rush into labels or declarations. Instead, they built a foundation of trust and understanding. They held hands as they walked through Sukhumvit's crowded streets, shared meals at their favorite stalls, laughed at small jokes that only they understood. Yet there were still moments of fear. One night, as they sat together in Benjikiti Park, watching the city lights reflect on the lake, Phum spoke quietly. "What if people don't understand? What if they say this isn't real?" Ananda turned to him, his gaze steady. "Then let them say it. We know what's real. We don't need their approval." Phum swallowed hard, his heart swelling. "You make it sound so simple." Ananda smiled. "It is simple. Love is simple. It's people who make it complicated. Their bond had transformed into romance, not rushed, not forced, but steady and deliberate. In Sukhumvit's chaos, amidst the hum of traffic and the glow of neon lights, Fum and Ananda had found a love that was theirs alone, defined not by society's expectations, but by their own truth.